That's a pile of laundry. Hello? Who do we have? Got some pillows in the spare room and a pile for you. Can everyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? I'm supposed to write a comment here. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, you got me? Let's see, I'm supposed to type this. Who wants to tell Grandma how to pin a comment? How do I pin this comment? Hi. Pin comment. Look at that. Hello, my name's Katie Harkin. I'm in Yorkshire and I'm just looking for my friend, Julien. Hi. Hello. Typey typey. Yep. Hi. Hi from Melbourne. What time is it in Melbourne? I miss that place. Very good breakfasts. I had waffles with corn in. Let's see. This is what is happening these days, is that digital vamping is the norm. It's so strange. So strange not to be able to hear anything, but you guys can hear me allegedly. How spooky, what a spooky machine. Hi from Germany. Hi Zia. Hi from Dublin. Very early. Well, thank you for getting up early, or staying up late. Hi Arizona. Had a great time in Arizona last year. Where's my mate? This is digital vamping. I'll tell you about my hat. All right, thank you. Thank you for the prompt of something to say. This is the Peak District National Park, which is somewhere I would like to go, but I'm definitely not going at the moment. It is where I lived when I was writing my record, and it's not actually that far from where I am, but we've all been asked to stay on lockdown and obviously not put rural forces, not to overstretch them at the moment. I don't know where she is either, but I would like to talk to her. Let's see. I do remember the band Kid It. Were they from Leeds? Or Kid ID? Hang on. This is a great use of the internet. I'm not versed on digital vamping. Hi from LA. Hi. Have I ever missed her? Can I summon her, or do I just have to wait for her to join? That's some good emoji art. Okay. Someone's texted her, an insider has texted her. Cheers. I'm drinking decaf Yorkshire tea with oat milk because I hate all fun. Hi. They have to request. I would love to accept, because this is just the most awkward thing. Open the hell mouth. Hi. Okay, I'm officially asking for help. Bless you all for hanging on. Oh, hang on. Wow, Jarvis Cocker. Well, I'm in Sheffield right now, so you can ask him some Sheffield questions. You can ask him how much Hendo's merch he's got in his house. I'd like to know that. Nothing sounds awkward in a British accent. Everything sounds awkward in a British accent. Everything we do is totally awkward. Killer Mike. Or Killer Mike. This is going to be the best part of the podcast. It's just me talking to myself. Well, not to myself. You're here, but you're not here. I'm totally alone. Do we have... Maybe there's like a time zone issue. I believe that I'm at the right time. This is just why I'm a musician and not a broadcaster, because I think this is making me want to pull my fingernails off, but I'm not gonna. Yui. Okay, she's on her way. She's on a digital trip to me. Greetings from JCNJ, Jersey City, New Jersey. This is a test. This is a good test for how many American state, places, and names I know. Okay, I'm scrolling. Thanks for holding on. 118. Giving waves back to the people that are waving. Isn't that strange? And nice. Strangely nice. Gosh. It's a long time to be on your own in the internet. Hi, Florida. What part of Florida? The two greatest bandmates in the whole Harkin band are in Florida. My sound quality is great. This is a pleasure. Great. Okay, that was something I was worried about. Let's see when you hear the podcast. Thank you, Zia. That's a huge, huge compliment. Okay. Well, hang on. I should have asked you all, what do you want us to talk about when I do actually manage to find Julien? What do you actually want us to talk about? Indonesia? Hi. Also Philly. A lot of love for Philly. Some great soup in Philly. Tiny town on the coast of... Is that FL or FI? FL? Like St. Augustine? Or that's... the only small town. Well, it's not a small town, it's a city, right? Hi, North Dakota. Hang on. We've got some intel. I once did Jen Wasner did the cross-country drive, but on the Flock of Dimes tour, we were driving from Seattle to Minneapolis, and we stopped in North Dakota, and Jen got... Oh, hang on. The best worst films ever made. There's I hope it's still around, there's a movie theatre in Seattle called... Oh, man, it's called like Cosmic Cinema or something. And it was right by the studio Central Cinema, that we used to record in with John Goodmanson, and on St. Patrick's Day one year they played Leprechaun with Jennifer Aniston, and Jennifer Aniston's original nose, and they had green beer and green popcorn, and it was just the most American thing that I had experienced up until that point. Central Cinema, yes, that was a great place. I saw the Goonies for the first time there. Again, as a Brit, I'd never seen the Goonies. They do a lot of like sing-alongs and stuff like that. Julian just started a live trying to reach... Is she trying to reach my account and not the Talkhouse account? Is that the problem? Okay, this is wild. I'm just sweating it up on the live internet. Is this like every family Zoom call that everyone's having right now? There's just one family member, which is me, that can't find anyone. She has to come. She's coming. Hi, Julian. Hi. Hi. Okay. So knock on the door. How do you... She just says no. She sent a request. View. Hello?
Oh my god! Dude,
Yes!
I've been watching you for so long. But the worst part is, it's been particularly like tortuous because I can see everything you're saying, and I can see you being like highly uncomfortable. And if the roles were reversed, it would be
Mate.
the same. Like I would be horribly. Like,
I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you.
The whole time I was like, oh no, Katie's gonna think I'm a bad friend.
No.
She's gonna think I'm a bad friend, but I was sitting there like.
But now I'm like ecstatic to see you.
I called my manager Sean and I was like, help! I also accidentally went live on my own channel just for about 15 seconds.
I did the same thing when I was trying to test out if I could. Yeah, I feel like this is dragging us all kicking and screaming into the world of like to camera internet.
Yes. Actually, hold on. Speaking of, I see you're looking at a little microphone, and I forgot to turn on my Logic session. So.
Oh yeah, turn it on. Okay, so I'll tell them what you're doing. It's because this is going to be a podcast as well. So just in case we need to like restart so that the podcast like makes sense, we'll do some like hello again. But oh, this is so nice. It's so better to be awkward with a friend than to just be awkward on your own, you know?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think my only solution is I'm gonna have to hold this microphone like I'm doing.
I thought I was gonna have to do that until like 5 minutes before, and I remembered I had this thing. So.
Gosh, I should have. Also, part of the reason I have to admit is because I thought that this was at 5 p.m. Central Time, so I was just dicking around on Logic like I have been for the past forever. And Sean sent me a text like, "Are you joining?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll just quickly do this thing I've never done before." And yeah.
No, you're fine. Yeah, okay. Let's be people that start a podcast. All right.
Oh, okay.
So because you've started your thing now. I don't want to cause like a total nightmare for whoever's job it is to like stitch this together. So.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Hi. I'm so glad. Hi. Totally natural. I'm so glad we found each other.
I'm so glad we found each other on the vast plane that is the internet realm.
Yeah, this is wild. So there are people that are watching us now on Instagram Live, but this artifact will survive as a Talkhouse podcast as well. So if it bleeds into strange realms for either audience right now, then that's just the world we're living in.
I was thinking about the thing that you said right before I clumsily set up my Logic device. When you said that this was dragging us all kicking and screaming into the future, whether we like it or not. And for me, that's been particularly salient. Like, I feel like I had almost completely checked out of social media, like, just for my own health. And then it became the sole way to communicate with people truly.
Right. Like before the pandemic, you checked out of social media.
Well, sort of like pretty much, yeah. Except
Yeah.
for communicating with the people in my immediate life, because I was
Yeah.
just like, look, I don't think human brains are designed to have this much information like crammed into them all the time at
Hmm.
once, like constant 24-hour news cycles and stuff.
Yeah.
But then now that it's not a choice anymore, there seems to be like that privilege of liberty to make the choice to abstain from
Hmm.
like putting a particular kind of media in my brain. But now
Well,
I
it's
can't.
addicting,
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
addicting. There's
yeah.
these, these shiny things that are designed to be lustrous, and we cradle
Mm-hmm.
them and we touch them. But it's also, I'm sure that after this, whenever we get over to the other side of this, that there's going to be, studies looking at how digital literacy has like exploded. I feel like we've moved on a month in the last month. We've moved on like 5 years, whether it's the fact that like my dad
Oh
is talking to people from his school on Zoom, which he wouldn't have been doing, or it's the fact
God.
that like Saturday Night Live is doing sketches about things they wouldn't have been doing, which, they still would have been funny. It's just, would they have happened if they
Yeah.
hadn't happened now? We still would have got the jokes, but
Mm-hmm.
we've just dragged the mainstream up to it.
Totally. And I think it is a little bit like that. That's why it's more dystopian, almost, is because in every representation of the future, because for whatever reason, well, I've been, uh, oh my God, hold on, I just recognized that the metronome has been on this whole time. So there's a
Well,
great, but yeah, like
my
every
timing's been perfect without it. I just want you. I hope everyone's noticed.
you're just
I've set it to C major. I hope you have too in the recording. This is why they don't let musicians record podcasts usually, because
I
this
know.
is what we think is funny.
Oh gosh, I was gonna say, like I've been reading all this sci-fi and it's really a trip because I feel like all of the things that are signaled in those kind of representations or forecasts of the future are always like hyperbolically intended to reflect something much more minuscule in the present. And I think that's like what's happening now, is that everybody's on Zoom and
Hmm.
everything is like a virtual meeting, but it's been forced into normalcy out of necessity, which
Yeah.
is great. Like, I think about that sometimes, is that like it touches every factor of everything, but
Hmm.
I'm not, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not so worried about it that I am calling it dystopian in a realistic way, though.
yeah. Well, you're still here with me, so I'm grateful that you
Yeah,
you came
yeah,
back from the digital woods. I
yeah. The distillers.
I was trying to remember when we first met.
Yeah.
Was it Minneapolis? Was it that like outdoor show? Was that
Oh
the
my
first
gosh.
show?
Yeah, I forgot that that was even in Minneapolis because it was in like a nondescript, um, like
Yeah.
fields with all. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. We
I
sat
was
on the
scared to
floor of
have
like a
my.
parking lot
Yeah.
afterwards, which
I,
is what I remember.
and I was terrified to have my tarot read because I thought I was going to get my soul stolen.
And did you?
Turns out no. Turns out no.
Was it already gone or
It was. It was. It was already gone. There was no. There's no such thing as the immortal soul. No, I've been reading Gravity's Rainbow too, which like is always sitting me into like a brooding hole. So I was gonna ask you, like, what have you been? Because I remember, was it there? I bought some book that I really liked, and we were on tour. But I was gonna ask you what you've been reading because that's what I've been asking everyone.
I've been reading a lot of like how to stuff.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah,
Really?
I feel like I need a lot of bandwidth for fiction. Like I
Hmm.
consume a lot more non-fiction than fiction, and like I feel that at the moment I haven't had that. And part of it's been, record release stuff like positive, and then
Right.
obviously like a lot of it has been just generalized anxiety for the world right now. But I've been going between like teaching myself to cook new things to like teaching myself stuff about like synthesizers that I had put off for years, but generally not feeling very productive and not feeling like anybody should feel productive. But yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
an interesting thing that you get at, because, like, well, and it seems to be a topic that conversations revolve around, especially when I catch up with folks on Zoom or over the
Hmm.
phone, like, what has been occupying your time now
Yeah.
becomes this much more, like, momentous decision, like, even though there is now feasibly, like, a lot more, like, quote unquote free time, there's now this, like, weird underlying impetus to be creative all the time. At least I find for my friends who also are musicians or
Hmm.
painters or writers or things, like, because the tasks that we do are already so sort of, like, unquantifiable. Now it's hard to know what to do.
Yeah, and because there's the kind of introvert extrovert balance of being a musician,
Right.
that when you're home, um, it's it's supposed to be the introvert time, it's supposed to be the generative time, um, which also is just forcing the sort of parameters of product on our time right now. It's why aren't you generating? And as you say, it's so difficult to work out, like, how do you trap the lightning in the jar? And the best thing I feel I can do sometimes is just keep feeding the filter and seeing what comes out the other side. But
Oh,
realistically, as you said before, now the filter's also being fed with like a 24-hour news cycle, with an event that even our grandparents haven't dealt with before if they're still around.
yeah. And you, like, you talked about two things. Well, like, first, that it feels like there is this element of urgency for capturing the lightning in the jar, for capturing either just the resource of time and using it to create something, or just feeling like our worth, or our work, or the things that we create, or even like the meals that we learn to cook, those are in
Mm.
some way quantifiable as a product or as a necessity. Um, and also, like, just the terminology around what essential means,
Mm.
And I think there's a whole there's a whole bunch more there to unpack than people maybe talk about frequently. But
No, yeah, definitely, because I
yeah.
th I think that it our homes have changed from somewhere that we come to rest
Hmm.
to somewhere where we do everything. And rest is part of it, and work is part of it. And so rather than it become this sort of delineated thing, like in our industry, on tour or off tour, but for everybody else, yeah, like work and rest, those lines being blurred, I think is unilaterally stressful.
Definitely. Well, and then it's funny because a lot of the professions, even people that you and I interact with, and people that are, as the sort of jobs that are created by advanced technology increase, like, so sure, now, like, things are more convenient, but they also, like, create this weird job need of, like, people whose work is on their laptop, and so they already were mobile, and we were,
Mm,
like, sliding towards this, kind of like you said, like, we've grown more because we've just been kind of, like, forced over this slope
yeah.
into what we had already been anticipating.
Totally. And like I have used a laptop on stage before, but I also know that it does sometimes feel difficult to make music on the same device that I do my taxes on. Like
Oh my
that's,
gosh, yeah.
it's just psychologically impossible not to, like,
Hmm.
at some point separate that. But equally, I can't stand it when people, um, you know, will talk about computers being cheating or some extended, version of that
Oh gosh,
accusation when
yeah.
they have, guitar pedals with microchips in that were built by robots. It's like, at what point is what's
Oh no, I
authentic,
mean,
you know?
totally. And that's something else too that I think about a lot right now because of the way that sharing art across platforms, because I think it's easy, and it was easy for me, God knows, for a long time, to just sort of like villainize social media
Mm.
um, like indiscriminately and just be
Mm-hmm.
like, no, this is absolutely bad for us as humans.
Mm-hmm.
um but then like I was also one of those like not anti laptop people, but
Mm.
I personally didn't see one in my set. But the new record requires a lot more of like triggering of like triggering certain loops and getting them all like centered. So I had to learn how to use Ableton,
Yeah.
and like I don't know about like how you feel comfortable wise with like your setup on stage right now, but
Mm.
it took some adjusting. The more to- toward the virtual realm I move,
Mm.
generally the less comfortable I become. But I try not to let that be. It was very intimidating to me for a long time. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that
Yeah.
would have, I think maybe a year or two ago, I would have just completely like unplugged because I was like, I don't know how to use. I tried to teach myself how to use Twitch to
I
make.
still haven't done it. I'm
Oh
I'm
my
gonna do
gosh!
it. I've sent myself so many notes saying get Twitch question mark, but it hasn't happened yet. You know,
Oh my
it
god,
will
you're
do.
like me. I have so many emails from myself to do stuff that
Same.
I'm never gonna do.
Oh God, they're awful. They're all just like figure out Snapchat. You know, it's like
Dude, no,
from your.
I'm not lying when I told you it took me so long to figure out Twitch, and the person teaching it to me was like a young kid. Like a
You can
kid
teach me then. Okay,
I
this
would
is
have
like
been
a
a counselor to.
like
Alright.
keep the chain going. You
Yeah,
teach
yeah,
me and then I'll teach someone else.
we'll do a good old fashioned skill trade.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had I've most recently I haven't had any laptops on stage with me, but a couple of times I have, and I think like a lot of tech, there's a lot more to it than just the whether it's authentic or not. It's also having an anxiety of do I have something on tour with me that I can afford to replace or that can break and I can somehow like carry on with the show.
Oh
Because that's
gosh.
the other thing that obviously, bands get bigger and they have more support available to them. If people are able to get crew members for the first time, then it means that that kind of level of worry dissipates. And I've certainly, you know, felt felt more comfortable on stage when I've been in situations where there has been support for me. I mean, I remember doing a show with this British band Wild Beast that I toured with, and it was our first show of the tour, and we played that outdoor festival in Austin, which is called
South by Southwest?
Austin City
Austin
Limits, Austin
Limits.
City Limits, and
Yeah.
it hadn't rained all summer, and there were all these signs outside of Austin that said "Pray for rain," and the sides of the highways were scorched. And then we started playing, and the first note of the first song, the heavens opened, and the rain came in onto the stage, and I've never seen a crowd react like it. They went like fully feral because the whole city had been praying for rain, and they weren't prepared for it at the
Whoa!
festival. The security guards were slashing down the advertising hoardings to throw over like big power bank things. I didn't play on every song in the set, so in between my songs, I was grabbing stage towels and like drying off keyboards and stuff. And the stage computer that Tom was using as the brain for his whole synth setup, dead, like totally dead.
Dude,
So first
yeah.
first show of the tour. So we need to have, this is my plea to the tech industry. We need like a synth brain thing for musicians that's also not like a $3,000 laptop. Like there needs to be a better sampler synth like touring situation, or send me send me some comments. I'm sure people will. But
Yeah. Every time I talk about something to one of my like tech or gearhead friends, I'm like, man, if only I could just. And then they try to send me like some
mm,
Sweetwater link that looks like one of those old computer servers from the 80s. And I'm like, I'm not
yeah,
gonna get that. I'm not
no.
gonna get that.
If it won't, yeah, something that'll fit in my pocket, or
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no,
But
I don't know. There is something about austerity and this weird elitism that forces people to, because within the world of synths, there's like, oh my gosh. See, even right now, I'm afraid to talk about it because I'm such an amateur. Because I've started messing around with analog modular synthesis, and
Yeah.
it's so crazy. I got this pedal called the Zoya that's basically like a sequencer, but also inside. Have you seen it?
No, no, that
You,
sounds really fun.
you should check it out. I
Yeah,
don't know. I've been trying to do that. I had like some. Oh, it was like a Yamaha DX7 and then like a Cord Volca. But
awesome.
what have you been?
Well,
Messing?
I also have a great tip for people if you want to get into expensive synthesizers, which is find a studio that has expensive synthesizers and rent one day of their time rather than because they will have like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and then you can go and play. Because I would love to be the person that has a epic analog synth collection, but I don't have
Dude,
the space or the resources for it. But
dude.
I've been lucky enough to to go to studios that have it, and then the more studios that I've been to, it's made me think, what am I doing? Why would I ever really build this like? What am I going to do? Fill my box room with like a fire hazard of stuff that I'm nervous about getting robbed, when really I should be like supporting studios and supporting
Dude.
recording engineers. Um, so for my records, I did a lot of the modular synthesis stuff with a producer called Richard Formby, who I met through Wild Beasts again because they recorded with him, and he actually lectures in modular synthesis. So
Whoa.
he's like a
Yo, that's crazy.
yeah, so he's a producer that's been like working with them like before they came back round to be cool again, and he gets all sorts of like he's mates with all the producers, and they send him his like the like blemish ones that they make because they know that the true modular nerds won't like anything that's like not completely perfect looking. Um,
Whoa.
but talking to him about it because it is his job to also be an educator to talk
Yeah.
about it made me think like, oh yeah, also it's incredibly intimidating to me, but it's also something to be massively respected because it is like a whole other discipline. And in so many other respects in the music industry, we've been expected to be Jack and Jills of all trades.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
You know,
interdisciplinary. Well, yeah, I was gonna say that because, well, and then it's so expensive, like to mess around with something like real old synths. The whole like elitism thing comes back into play of the austere, like the vintage synthesizers, where
yeah,
like I am not gonna go buy a Juno, but I could buy a little pedal from now that's like much more cost effective and models all those things, and that's
hmm
exactly the kind of uh, consumer attitude I used to be vehemently opposed to
hmm
because I don't know. I think there's some maybe not even a sense of superiority, but of authenticity to it.
hmm
Um, but yeah, when you think about especially modular synthesis, it's such a different realm for creation because you're building the sound like from a sine wave
from
and you
electricity.
yeah, yeah. It's completely mathematic. It's so meticulous. It's very slow. Like it demands for you to switch your brain into a completely other part of music making.
hmm
Um, because I mean, like if you're a person who plays like is a multi instrumentalist, and like you were saying, like the music industry expects you to be Jack and Jills of all trades and just kind of universally universally fluent in like music. Um, that's something that you can't really do when you approach like creating the timbre of a noise.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool.
it's like
I would love to hear
coding.
him lecture. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it very much is. It's a lot more like it reminds me of circuit building. Like
Mm.
you just have to like put all the parts in their order, and it's so far separated from music. Like I used to make little like fuzz pedals with extra parts
Awesome.
and stuff. Yeah, but like it's the same idea that it is vaguely musical, but not really all that.
I guess it's a question of fluency and like
Yeah.
what you feel fluent in and what you feel is, when I feel like I'm writing in the best way possible with the equipment that I have, it's like when it feels very transparent to me. And then that transparency is something that takes time, usually, unfortunately. So it doesn't feel like a barrier. And I guess it's like any of this other tech stuff that we started talking about at the start, like people didn't like novels when novels first came out, like, when photographs first started, people were suspicious. So, I did read a fact once that Louis Daguerre's assistant was found, I think 18 months after the invention of the daguerreotype, he was found selling pornographic images in a park in Paris. So it just shows you like how quickly technology can be used for every single whim of the human heart.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's just like people, how, the news story one day was people are using Zoom for, talking to their families, and the next thing was, people are Zoom, did they call it Zoom bombing, or hacking into people's Zoom conversations?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So
that is immensely creepy to me.
So there's one certainty to the human condition, that whatever technology we devise, we will find a way.
Oh yeah. That's like a John Milton quote, right? It's like, man puts all best things to meanest use and worse abuse.
Wow. I think you just won the pub quiz of this
Yeah,
conversation.
this is what there's no like cafe bar trivia.
Ding ding ding. Yeah.
No, that's that's like a super bleak quote, but I remember reading that and being like, yeah, kind of. That's like the why we can't have nice things meme, but just in Milton's poetry.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're gonna ruin it.
Yeah,
somehow.
We're gonna use it to take a dick pic eventually. Like whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're not paying enough attention to the chat, so this is a reminder to the podcast that we are also on Instagram Live. So I'm just gonna do a little tiny scroll through the Instagram Live to see if there's any questions. The question is, do we read the chat? We are reading the chat. How do you reply?
You're getting them so much faster than I think I am.
Yeah.
I have crap.
There's a lot of questions about Glee that happened in the last Instagram Live. I don't understand what's going on.
I was going to tell you, what you were talking about, the inevitability of psychological progress or technological progress and our like psychological acclimatizing to it.
Yeah.
There's a through line about that, about how people, it's like a history podcast from NPR, and it talks about people like me who are like, phones are awful, get it away from my face. And people literally tried to like burn down tractor manufacturers and like had like anti-tractor. People lost their minds and thought that tractors were invented by Satan.
Tractors, as in
tractors, in like
wow.
Yeah,
it's like 5G. It's like the 5G towers that are getting burnt down. Tractors are 5G, man.
Exactly. Yeah, like we're always gonna find something to hate,
I think anything, that I could take away from the situation right now that is positive is how incredibly adaptable people are proving themselves to be, and the way in which technology, whether it's a tractor or whether it's Tinder, forces us to change our behaviors. I think some of them rub a little more than others, but ultimately we are adaptable. The thing I think about a lot is how when I was growing up, how there's often something that's okay to say publicly, I'm not going to learn. Like when I was growing up, it would be VHS. It would be somebody going, I can't program the VCR. Like, I'm not going to learn how to use that thing. Like in popular culture, it would be like the throwaway comment about somebody being a Luddite or like, a dad or a granddad or something. And I just think it's interesting that generationally, there's usually one thing that's okay to say, like I'm suspicious of, or like, which basically means I have decided to stop learning. This is as much as I will learn in my life. Like,
Mm.
whereas
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by, everybody that is, educating themselves to be able to connect with their families right now. It's incredibly heartwarming, seeing, hearing about 85-year-olds reading, putting their poetry on next door. That was on a podcast I was listening to,
Oh my gosh. I need to listen to the
Yeah.
podcast you're listening to because I love hearing about like an 80-year-old putting their poetry on next door. I love that. But all the
That
podcasts I listen to are like Reset, and they're just about like, here's the scary tech stuff that's going on in the world right
Well,
now.
here's the part of the podcast that's about other podcasts, which is everybody's favorite kind of podcast. That was on Moshe Kasher and Natasha Leggero's Endless Honeymoon podcast,
Oh,
which I love. But I got into because, and this can be turned into a question for you, I went to go see him at UCB in LA when I was really jet lagged coming back from Australia, having played with Courtney Barnett. And it was something that I did because I was staying on my own to try and beat jet lag. And I knew if I went to a movie, I would fall asleep. But you can't fall asleep in front of well, you could do, but it would be so horrible to fall asleep in front of stand-up comedians. And I didn't because it was a very great show.
right.
But it became my jet lag hack was to go to a comedy show if I had a night or somewhere and I was really tired or jet lagged and wanted to try and beat jet lag. So remember jet lag?
Oh God.
Remember when
No,
that
yeah,
was an option? Do you have this is my great
yes.
topical
Well,
question. What's your jet lag tip?
oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I tried to do exactly what you're discussing right now. I tried to do it. We had landed in Amsterdam, and it was like an overnight flight, but of course I couldn't sleep. And so we
Yeah.
stayed up all day that day, and then Manchester Orchestra was playing in Amsterdam, and the band before them is a band that I had actually known previously called Sloth Rust, who rule but are so loud. They're
Sloth
so
Rust.
Sloth Rust. They're
That's a
awesome.
great band name.
It's amazing, but I fell asleep. It's like the sludgiest, like distortion noise, like flapping out of the bass speaker,
Wow.
and my tour manager at the time and I, Avanti, just fell asleep with our head on the bass cabinet.
Wow.
And somebody was like,
Like little babies.
like little babies. Yeah, I was like,
Hmm.
well, we have to go home. We can't even make it to. Like, imagine if you went and saw, like, I don't know, like, well, now it's kind of.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep during a Slate Kenny rehearsal. So um,
Okay.
I'm guilty. And I had to bench
Rehearsal
myself.
new. You what?
Yeah, I had to like bench myself. You know the feeling when because the sleep that you're describing is not really sleep. It's like chemical failure of the body to be awake.
Sure.
So it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you decided to like tuck in for the night on the speaker. You fully like your body like
Yeah, it shuts down.
corrupted and shut down. Um, and yeah, I was on stage. We were doing production rehearsals at the Crystal Ballroom, and I had that feeling of the curtains coming down and there's nothing I can do, like mid-song. And so at the end of the song, I was like, I'm so sorry, I just have to go lie down. And they have these like hard wooden benches at the Crystal Ballroom in Portland, and they were like, cool, we'll just play one of our other songs, and I just passed out on it. And again, like in that circuit with a full PA going, and there's no bodies in the room to take it
Oh,
up, so
yeah,
it's
that's
yeah.
a level of exhaustion that I can't even recall. I feel like a whole
Mm.
lot of pent up energy now
Hmm.
because that sort of like stretching of the self. Like I'm actively involved in trying to come up with things like tasks to do that are meaningful and they're not like filled in that way. I don't know, it's sort of like I guess it's not right, but like a grass is greener thing where like I crave to be home and like cultivate closer relationships, like and be more present with my family. And then now we're in a period of stasis, but not one
Mm.
that we can feasibly use to really like see other people,
Hmm.
which seems comically sad. Like,
Yeah, that
yeah,
um I've felt through, I mean, putting out a record always feels like this, but it's something that
Right,
I've
right.
I've said before, that particularly now I feel like I'm in a little spaceship and I'm sending out the gold record to other civilizations. Like there's something about us all being in little bubbles, so close but so
Yeah,
far from each other, that seems very space poddy to me. To bring it back to
yeah,
your sci-fi.
yeah, completely. Like
Yeah.
everyone is at least on the same level of alienation as you. It's not like you're
Mm.
self-existing in a spacesuit bouncing through the world, you know, on a
Hmm.
red eye or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is that? How are you feeling about that? I have a couple of friends that are in the process of releasing music, and I don't know. It seems like an interesting place to be in.
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I mean, I was already really grateful, but my partner and I started a label, excuse me, started a label to release this record. And part of it was to be able to support other artists, and part of it was to make sure that I had the kind of creative freedom I wanted for releasing records, but I couldn't have anticipated that that would be sort of activated so instantly by me being able to make the executive decision to not push the album back, because I feel like there's going to be artists that are unfortunately in that position, that they're not ultimately in control of release dates,
Mm-hmm.
and that, records are going to get shelved. And so I am worried for other artists that that I don't want their work to get lost, you know.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Um, But
Yeah.
I feel like with sort of social media and things now, people would kind of be able to champion for it. And thankfully, there is digital releases. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
just totally mail
Completely.
order.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a little worrying for, well, it's a lot worrying for a lot of things. But one of the worries that I have for the future for artists is how are people's releases going to get shelved, or will they? I'm, yeah.
You mean this in just the immediate future?
Yeah, I think so, but it equally speaks to if all the tours are getting pushed and the venues are
Yeah.
shutting down, and then everyone's trying to rearrange their tours and their releases for the same weeks, then our independent artists going to suffer from that. And how can we help those independent artists, and like be aware that the small space for them to occupy has potentially like shrunk even further?
That's true. Or, I mean, I think it could be either that or a case of, and again, like this is a phenomenon I had already started to see happen, but um, almost the accessibility created by the technology that we do have to like do
Hmm.
digital releases and to share our music at like a ridiculously high quality compared to what we could do even just like 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and just make it in our houses.
Yeah.
That like I don't think, or like, yeah, the space that we had to occupy got smaller, but in some ways it's like there's quite a bit of infinite space for musicians to occupy, but we're like maybe getting infinitely further apart with like little clusters of fragmented music tastes. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like there's no real dominant universal consumption of like the same stuff
Yeah.
as
I
much as
mean,
there was.
we kind of, we're not exactly the same age, but we did both grow up with that kind of monoculture that preceded streaming and the internet.
Yeah,
And there's a certain, you know, in a way, it unifies the counterculture by there being a monoculture.
yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, because there's a clear and discernible like enemy, or like not even an enemy, just a dominant culture. And if you
Hmm.
are the non-dominant culture, then you're the othered, and then of course you have like a unified, quote unquote, like oppositional entity. So yeah, so now there's no monoculture, and I don't know if I necessarily think that's a bad thing. But it
Same.
does put us. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it is kind of difficult as you and I were both raised with like, well, you can be different levels of a successful band, but
Yeah.
all of them are going to be on VH1's Top 20 Countdown at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not that many of them. Now there can be like people who just make lo-fi study beats to chill to or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then like are able to support themselves reasonably for that, or people with like you can just put up crap on your Bandcamp. Like that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it's pretty. It's like scarily exciting because there's so much of it that you couldn't possibly like
Consume. It's the
mm-hmm.
anxiety of not being able to consume it
Yeah,
all. I like scarily exciting. Um, and it's interesting what you're saying about how to group yourself now, because I mean I grew up in a town that it didn't necessarily have like a sound like of what the band sounded like from that town, so that the lineups for the sort of DIY shows could be quite varied because it wasn't like a town with one sound, if that makes sense. Like it was all just like this is this warehouse space that we've got for the weekend. So the 12 bands that we can find to play the £3 all dayer will play today. So in a way, it kind of feels like that to me in a really refreshing way, rather than it being, if you want to play this showcase in London, it's for this kind of band and for this magazine. And if you don't sound like this magazine and this kind of band, then I'm sorry, there's no space for you, you know?
no, totally. I mean, and I think it can have either, like, it depends on how people interact with the platform, right? Because it can have either effect, so I always talk about that's how Memphis was too, and I loved it. That there was no
Awesome.
real, like, I always describe it as if there's a school that's big enough to have, like, the lunch table where the football players sit, and the lunch table
Mm,
where the goth kids sit, and the lunch table where the nerds sit. Like, if your school is small enough, there's only like one lunch table that you all just have to find a seat at.
yeah.
And I felt like that was how we were a band that like sounded like if Uncle Tupelo tried to rip off Sunny Day Real Estate, and it was so whack, and
I've
we
got
were
to
just
hear it.
no, it was very derivative on my part, and anyway, but like
No, I think that's such a great metaphor, and it makes
yeah,
me think of the art room at my school, because that's where I would hang out in the lunchtime, and it was one of the places where like girls from different years would hang out together, and it was like okay for us to be mixing with people that were in a different, year at school to us.
yeah,
Um, and I made friends with this one girl who was 2 years above me. And we would all, it was also one of the places where we would have access to a stereo. The art teacher let us put things on the stereo. And one
yeah,
day,
here
this
with all
girl brought in a tape because she said, this, she said something like, this reminds me of your sense of humor. And she put it on, and it was the Smiths, and it was the first time. And I was like, and looking back, I think about that, and I was like, wow, it really says a lot about my how chipper I must have been as a teen. Um, but something about the sort of the leveler by being in a small enough environment that you have to mix with yeah
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's really powerful. That is really powerful.
I quite like that. And then like, well, I mean, now that you think about, imagine if you took that small environment where there wasn't room for like a hierarchy to grow, like in the petri dish of genres. Like now, theoretically, we couldn't enact that as in the way that we consume music, and I think we are. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, I think there's a whole like I don't know if you were like this, but I mean, going back to the sort of quintessential like high school experience, like people separating themselves like into maybe superficial, maybe not, but just like
hmm
certain groups according to like taste, or like in your regular coming of age movie,
hmm
like cool kids and bad kids and kids that smoke pot, and I don't see that really having a foothold, or like it's not really precipitated by music taste anymore. With my
Yeah.
like little cousins, and when I like talk to like my friends' younger siblings and stuff, that it seems like that sort of confrontation doesn't really take up space in the like adolescent consciousness anymore, which I think is kind of sick. Like,
It's very interesting because I still feel like I speak to, um, adolescents that listen to my music or bands that I've played with, and like I I still feel like there's a commonality there. But I totally know what you mean in that I think if the sort of tribalism that can be so
yeah.
comforting in music, if that's taken online, it's maybe more imperceivable. Like maybe it's just harder because it's not
Oh,
just the 5 CDs that you could get. So you better like those
yeah.
5 CDs because
Well, yeah. So
yeah.
then, like and also you think about like aesthetic has become more important in some ways, and then also less important in that like I used to have like $10 to get whatever CD, and I just picked the one that
Hmm.
looked like it had screwed up metal font because that was bound to be something I was gonna
What's
like.
that font called? Like,
I
okay,
don't know what that font's called.
comment section. This is why we're doing Instagram Live, so we can so we can ask you questions, so we can
Yes.
fact check.
Oh,
What
also, I was gonna say, what time are you at 5?
am I? Am I what?
You go
Oh, you
from
can
here?
keep going. Are you asking
Oh,
if we can keep
hell yeah.
going? I can keep
Okay,
going if you can keep going.
I can
I'm
keep going if you can keep
truly
going.
going nowhere. So
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
same. Okay, wow,
yeah.
that's really interesting. I have this like mental check where I know that I'm always in the middle of referencing some article that has only like a shred of something to do with what we're talking about.
So
So I try to keep it under like a 3 to 5 minute tangent, just in case we have
I
somewhere to
think
be.
this has
That's
been a
why.
whole tangent, right?
Yeah.
This whole thing. It'll cut off after an hour. Ooh, the IG will cut off after an hour. Is that true? Is that
I don't
true?
know. I don't know if that's true. I've
What
been.
a wild ride. How exciting. We could just
How
get
did
cut off at
did
any
someone
time.
did someone say that?
Somebody said that in the comments, but do we believe everything that we read on the internet? I tell you what, why don't we um yeah, okay. I think I remember I'm gonna ask you one question, maybe as the
Okay.
last question in case we do get fall off the face of the internet. I think when we were on tour together, I remember having a conversation with you about stage fright. How do you feel now as an artist whose performances have been pivoted to things like this, to performing to a screen rather than two people? I will give you a short answer. I will say they make me really sweaty in a way that I was very shocked by. Like it's true, like actual performance fear sweat. It's not, I'm just talking, you know.
Yeah. No, I think I do get nervous before shows. And I do because there's always like kind of like what we were talking about with the computer, you know?
Hmm.
Like I'm always like catastrophizing that something's going to go wrong.
Hmm.
But maybe there's something surreal where as a response to the anxiety of doing things like this, where I know the magnitude of like how big the internet is, it's comforting to think of like how small I am, because I'm like, oh, how many people could have possibly seen me like turn on my Instagram accidentally and try to connect to you.
Hmm.
And I also, which by the way, I'm just gonna tell you that I'm sorry again for
No,
moving.
no need to
I
apologize.
felt so
I
bad
also
because
broadcast a
I hate
pile of
yeah.
pillows that I'd moved out of the way to do this. So,
Aw.
wow, what an embarrassing day for me on the internet. Yeah.
No, I mean like I said I hate these. I don't mean I hate these in the sense that like I don't enjoy catching up with you, my friend, and engaging with people because I've just been in my house all day. But
Yeah.
I am like deeply like I feel paranoid and
Mm.
extremely self-aware, way more self-aware than I would just at a show. Um, and I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. Yeah.
Maybe we should stand on the highest surface in our house, like the kitchen counter, and then put the phone like really like as far away as possible, and then just like get someone to move it around so it's in front of somebody else.
You're now live. I'm back. Did anybody come back with me? Did anybody come back? So, Julien, come and join me again. This is the part of the podcast where I just do a monologue, where I describe what it's like to be a musician, left to tend Instagram live channels instead of performing live. It feels like I'm stood at the merch table on my own, talking to myself, still sweaty from the show, and just pontificating about why I'm here in this town and why I'm playing this show. The town being this spare room, and this show being live on Instagram with Julien Baker. Someone says they're eating lunch in their bathroom. Not sure about that, especially given the current climate. You know, Julien, are you going to come back to me? I'm gonna send one email. What a time to be a creative. Checking my emails on Instagram Live. What else can you see in the reflection of my glasses? How tantalizing. Julien, is she coming back? Who's got the power of the text? Okay, I'm going to take questions on my own until we find out. Ooh, is that somebody else asking to join? Okay, I'm gonna take questions until perhaps Julien comes back. Thank you for tuning in. It's nice to see some of you back. Okay, someone says Julien be back. I don't know if that means she is coming back. What an end to this podcast, if this is how this podcast ends. It's just me being ghosted. You know what? Where am I most looking forward to playing live? I've had like 3 tours in Japan cancelled for various reasons, dating back to the great economic crash of 2008, and 2 others since then. So I would really love to come to Japan someday, but also Leeds, obviously. Okay. Just gonna get confirmation that maybe she's not coming back. What a podcast. Listen to a podcast of somebody doing Instagram live. Okay. Let's have a look. Is Julien coming back? Okay. This is favorite Mackenzie Torres moment from last tour. The last tour was in 2000. I don't know what the year was, but the one before, and we did get to play in Switzerland, which was a show that unfortunately got cancelled this time around. We went for a swim in a Swiss lake after the show, which was incredible, and we got given honey on the rider that was like an altar candle. It was so huge and tall and thick and delicious. It tasted like the bees were so happy to be alive in Switzerland, which who could blame them? If you've hung on in the podcast through this, then may all your greatest dreams come true. Apparently she is coming back. Thoughts on Men's Health Mag? I don't know. Have they featured me recently? Otherwise, I'm not interested. We'll all clap and stamp our feet and maybe she'll come back out. Let's do it. Let's click our fingers. Apparently, what about my personality has changed during the quarantine? It's tough. It's tough. I don't know anybody that feels like they're operating 100% right now, and I'm just very, very grateful that there are so many people working so hard to keep us all safe. So I think I am imbued with gratitude when I should have already been imbued with gratitude for the NHS. My Enneagram, Jen Wesner got me to do that. Oh boy, is that the one that's just the numbers? I think I'm like a 2 leaning on a 3 or something like that. Oh no, or is that the ENFP kind of? So many boxes to put me in, and I won't fit in any of them. Men's Health magazine is an honorary member of the indie music community. That's a wild statement. That is a bold statement from Instagram Live. Okay. Apparently Julien is coming back. This is like me being the wedding DJ, vamping for the bride crying in the toilet before the speeches or something. She's coming back. She is coming back. Everything's fine. Ooh, Julien Baker sent a request to be in my video.
Hello? Ding dong? Hello? Hello? What a rush! What a rush! She's back! What a ride! What a ride!
I got out of it for like 5 seconds, and then I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get it back.
It's great. I just had like a full out-of-body experience again, being live on the internet. I really hope that they cut that bit out of the podcast version. Otherwise, that's if you've made it this far, now we're going to give you the secret cheat codes to life, because wow, you've truly earned our long time love and respect. But wow, we've really mastered every technology.
I know. I thought of when you were talking about you feeling like a wedding DJ, I felt so bad.
Can you hear? There's a cat scratching at my door now. Can you hear it? That's some extra audio.
We're gonna have to Foley that in later to the podcast.
If you can hear what sounds like a cat, it's a cat.
Aww. How many animals do you have?
There's one here. So I'm staying with family in Yorkshire right now, and she's very, very cute. But also I feel very sorry for the animals of the world, because I feel like if she's an example of any of the animals, like I want her to love me so much, like so much. She is not a lap cat, and I am determined to like Tiger King her into being a lap cat. And I feel like I need to be held accountable. Need to just stop and leave her alone. I'm very, very kind and gentle to her, but I think she just doesn't realize.
Forcing the animal into loving us.
Yeah, I just want her to love her as much as I love her, and it's not ever going to happen, and I just need to get over it, But we've all been there.
I feel that way so often with my dog. I wasn't the kind of person who was really emotional about animals. Of course, I was vegetarian, vegan for a long time, and conceptually loved animals. But then I got my dog, and I was just crying, Googling BuzzFeed articles on 10 ways to let your puppy know you love them.
And now you're trapped with it, and it's I just feel like
I don't know, I need to let her know that I love her more than any living creature.
Yeah.
And she's not gonna know it, because she's just a silly little hound.
Especially now we're the neediest we've ever been. To be
they're the most cooped up. My dog is throwing a fit every day because she can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But we need so much attention. I get jealous of my dog's attention, and it's clearly just a psychosis of quarantine manifesting in my neediness.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of pets that are feeling exactly that way. They're stuck with their platonic crush, and they just wish that they'd go away. This was fun. This was really nice at first. You were showering me with gifts, and now I just Poor things. Poor things. And she's very well taken care of, and she's
Yeah.
spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Where
Yeah.
did we get to before we broke the internet?
What did we get to before we broke the internet?
Comment section can tell us.
We were actually talking about
You got it. You got it. You can remember.
Wait. We were talking about this very thing. We were talking about being, wow, somebody said
Stage fright. Stage fright. It was stage fright, right?
Haley Fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Thanks, Haley Fiasco.
I know. I spent so much time doing a bit in my own house where I shout everything out to the Instafam, and now I'm doing it in real life. I'm just completely immersed. I'm like a double agent of the current kids culture. I was like making fun of it, and now here we are.
Well, exactly like how people were making, that was something that was okay to shit on, was to shit on YouTubers. Like people, that was like a socially acceptable thing for like mainstream media to like ridicule, like, why is this person famous? What is this? What is this supposed skill that they have? And it's like, oh yeah, the skill that they have is captivating people to a cold screen. And now you're all trying to do it, and
which turns out is very hard. Like
it's very hard.
People that are fluent in the language and the sort of, it's almost like an alternate dialect with its own cues and representative like phrases and stuff of the world of the internet and memes.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to talk about here because in the days before the quarantine, there's like infinite memories of get-togethers where I've been like, memes are actually really interesting. I wish I could like write a thesis on them.
Please, I forgot I had to type out the comment thing again that I'm doing our internet housekeeping for us. Please talk to me about memes for 60 seconds.
No, yes, talk to me about memes. I feel new respect for the streamers, says a person named
totally
Sociology. Yeah, no, okay, there is, because think about like, you can express something that sort of like encapsulates like a whole political attitude or like requires all this back knowledge, but a very nuanced perspective about that event or about that phenomenon is being represented with like minimal words. I think that's really interesting, but I don't have the skill for it. Which makes me respect people who are internet literate far more than myself.
Oh, God
Hell
damn
yeah,
it. I'm just showing you the pillows again.
That looks creepy!
Nana, that was such a good Nana moment. But did you notice I did pin the okay, for the podcast, I was pinning the comment to the Instagram live, and then I flipped the camera around to again expose some pillows that I'd moved out of the way. It's a roller coaster ride. What a roller coaster.
Is that what you're
I was calling myself a Nana.
Okay.
Yeah, I was calling myself a Nana.
A little curmudgeon-y myself.
Yeah, but that was you were making a good point about memes.
Probably. I feel like I went back to school for one exact semester, and then I was ready for everything to be like a dissertation, and I have to readjust to people just wanting to have like a non-empirically journal article based discussion about me.
What did you go back to school for?
Oh, I went back to school for, so I was like 5 jillion different majors because I was gonna be all like, have a gripe with society about it. Like, I was asked to decide what I was gonna do with the rest of my life at 17, and I changed my mind. Yeah. So I was like an audio engineering major, and then I was a secondary education major, and then I ended up just getting, and I had Spanish literature minor in there. And then I ended up just getting a liberal arts degree where I just combined those, and I'm not allowed to teach anyone in the state of Tennessee.
So yeah, my understanding of how American colleges work.
So because you guys have like the form. Oh, sorry, I just like.
So you were doing like a teaching qualification, and then yeah. Yeah. Is that what you were going back to finish, like so you could teach again?
No. Well, no, I just went back because I dropped out of school to tour and I wanted
Right.
to finish my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did the teaching certificate, it would have been a year off touring. But if I just did a bunch of random credits and an independent study, it was like um, 6 months. Wow, this is really nice. This is the portion of the conversation where we slipped into like we're just like at
We're
a
sitting in the parking lot in Minneapolis where we first met, sitting on a
Yes,
we took like
exactly.
a blanket from the like tent dressing rooms and laid them on the hard tarmac to do tarot readings, as if that would
Oh my
make it
gosh.
more comfortable.
As if there's a lovely picture of me. It's so hilarious. It's like all of you guys doing. Somebody asked what grade I would have taught. Ninth graders, because they're not old enough to be annoying like a real human being, but they're not young enough to be annoying like a small child.
How old
Um,
is ninth grade?
Ninth grade is like, it's the time when they need the most love, man. It's that awkward age where they're like no longer cute. They're like 12, 13.
Right. People.
Um,
The people.
Yeah, they're people, but they're
Hmm.
like small people.
Yeah.
They're like, you can almost still not hold them accountable for everything stupid they do because they're not. I feel like if I taught seniors and they did dumb stuff, I would just be like legitimately angry at my peer.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to be
Right.
acting right by now. But
Yeah.
when a 12-year-old does something dumb, I'd be like, oh, that's adorable. Somebody said
Well,
14, 14 to 16, corrected me all over the place. I skipped a grade. Stop making fun of me.
hey, there you
Um,
go. What is time right now anyway, huh?
um, Yeah, what is time? Oh, yeah, there's a super funny picture of me, like, because I thought that my soul was going to get stolen, and I'm stretched, like, 3 full extra feet away from you guys, like, actually sweating, being like, this is some occult stuff. I don't know how it got into popular culture, and then now I just let Lucy read my tarot all the time.
Lucy, it was yeah, it was Lucy that was reading it, and I've genuinely never had a better tarot reading than
Same.
from her. That was fully without a book or anything. I've had some excellent ones from friends, but it's been like with the prompt of a book, whereas she is like it's deep, it's deeply within her.
It is deeply within her because I feel like, wow, there's just going to be a pride avalanche about Lucy.
Yeah,
But Lucy is one of the most wise and, like, she has such a talent for inner perception about what's going on with a person's emotions and just, like, this prophetic sensibility to it where she just understands things, like, with such an immediacy that it's wild. But yeah, same. I
that's
think
I mean,
she's
that's so beautiful that you would say that as somebody who's like her close collaborator, and then I have had like much more limited interactions, but I absolutely know exactly what you're talking about. Like
everybody, yes.
one of those people who you can see them in totality. Like there's no kind of murky like what is this
Yeah.
person about? Yeah. Are you so you're someone that like and collaborates a lot with other people. Are you do you feel like having that part of your personality has like prepared you for this in any way, like to sort of be seeking of other people or to try and, create from afar?
Oh gosh. Oh, you mean okay.
Did you guys collaborate remotely for
Yeah.
the Boy Genius or the ex Boy Genius X? However,
Thanks for calling it its true name.
is that how most I wasn't sure how to pronounce it?
No, the X-Boy Genius X is just that was like just a riff because that used to be how my name was spelled on MySpace. And
Nice.
probably, it's like the little hardcore X's.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the crazy thing about that is that we collaborated about like the whole thing was built in person. So except for I was extra and made a Google Drive and sent like some Logic demos and then
Great. She's been
got
a doomsday prepper for, a music prepper. Great. This is a great skill. And I think
yeah.
that's quite rare, you saying that you actually did it in person, because so many of these sort of collaboration records, you hear people saying like, oh, well, we were all on tour, so we did it all on whatever. So yeah, I think the fact that you
That's
guys actually did it all relatively in person
Yeah,
is rare.
I think one of the first projects I remember hearing about that like happening real time for me was Elvi, because of course there's like something like the Postal Service
Mm.
where but it's far enough away from having its genesis in like when I am learning about new music that I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing people do. But yeah, so curiously, the collaboration with that was all in person. I've been sending tracks. It's almost like I have the initiative to make and create a track and a song idea and think it out and then send it. And then because of how I am with the internet, I have zero initiative to check my email,
Mm.
see what happens. So it's almost just like I create this little momentary thing and then I just let it go and it's gone, which I sort of like in a
Yeah.
way. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that my friends who I'm emailing are not. They're like, oh my gosh, please open my fucking email.
It's wild how like people have a different idea of like sort of permanence when it comes to digital things. You know, some people send an email and expect that it's definitely going to get read, which is not the case.
Oh
It's
gosh, yeah. Or even just a text message. Like, I don't I don't think of my text messages as terribly urgent unless they say something like urgent, you
but
know.
in
But I think
but they can
people,
be used in a court of law, so be
what
careful. You know,
they can.
all of our
Well,
digital
no, I mean, I guess as
communications.
well, yeah, they can. Just like anybody's randomly. Well,
Hmm.
totally. No, I don't think of them as like something that's going to inevitably disappear. But when I see them on my phone, I don't associate like I don't associate any sort of gravitas to a text message. If I really need to speak
Mm.
to someone urgently, I'm gonna like call them or like an email. But I
Yeah.
feel like there's a different sort of etiquette developing that I'm not so privy to, you know, um, that
It's
make
digital intimacy kind of conversation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I know.
But
Um,
what was I gonna say? Somebody said we were talking about Lucy reading your tarot. Oh God, there was a story. For some reason, I wanted to tell this. She and I were hanging out with some friends, and it was when she was on vocal rest, and she was like giving me these very in depth like tarot readings and talking to me about like stuff that I don't necessarily get into but find fascinating. I don't know if you're like this, but astrological sign compatibility and stuff. Like,
again, I think they're very interesting prompts. I don't really know
yeah,
anything about it myself. Same with tarot. Like I find it very fun because I feel like it's a great. It's like the what are those creativity cards? What are those?
oh
The
my gosh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, I
everyone
have.
knows what we're talking about. Like
Yeah,
it's just that thing when you've got a microphone in front of you and you can't think of what they're called. You will
I
know what we're
know.
talking about. But yes, it's looking at these things as prompts rather than yeah. Hmm.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And and I think that's for some reason in queer culture there's a unique I feel like emphasis put on star signs and star charts, which makes me out of allegiance to queer culture want to be into astrology and I can't.
I think I totally know what you mean. Like
You know what I
as a
mean? Like
queer person, I think it's
there's all these memes like, oh, it's because she's a
it's filling
Libra.
the like religion void, you know.
Ooh, that is a very deep appraisal. That's not one I've gotten. I've just gotten like, oh yeah, that's like a fun. It's almost like relegating it to a superficial gossip sensibility or like just speculation. But
Mm.
filling the religion void, I think, is more accurate because with stuff like that and with stuff like Enneagram numbers,
And again,
somebody.
not that
Yes, I
it's
am
not
an Enneagram
compatible
type
to
four.
be a religious queer person, but just saying like if you don't see yourself in like parable, then you know astrology
No.
being something that is deliberately like symbols and you know
Yeah, no,
often
totally.
not gendered.
Yeah, not a direct analog to being a queer person, but stating the need almost like it's a less superficial thing, and it's more like a lens of self-examining.
Hmm.
Like if you whatever you pull from your tarot deck, like that's just a lens of your life that now is like drawn into focus, or like whatever astrological signs put emphasis on a lot of your your like predispositions
And
to
it's
go
it's
out.
identity. If the ways in which you would otherwise self-express, like, you don't feel like they're accessible to you,
Yep.
then nobody can deny that I was born under the sign Aries. So if that's, there's other things about
Yeah.
me that other people may deny, but well, other people would deny astrology. But I'm trying to talk about if you've had things about you that feel inalienable to you challenged, then it's
Yeah.
about finding like another structure or belief system, I suppose, that
Totally.
you can
Yeah.
identify with.
And I think it's interesting that like our personality is, because I think this too with the Enneagram numbers thing, is that people are looking for a vocabulary to describe themselves and their motivations and their core values in a way that is at least governed by some rubric in an effort to feel more understood by whoever the like um, theoretical recipient of that like
Mm,
information is. Like, I want you to understand me. I want to be able to understand you more intimately, and so I want to like fit us inside this working of how human beings can analyze their own behaviors and thus
yeah,
justify it through all of these. Yeah, it's a little comforting.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm trying to pull up the tweet of the pandemic for me so far, that really helped me understand this kind of feeling that we're all having right now. Okay, maybe this is a good way for us to let everybody go to class, as everyone's talking about
Yes.
going to class in this. So Ashley C. Ford, who's at I Smash Fizzle on Twitter, wrote, and I don't know if she's quoting someone else, and I'm also not sure if they identify as she, but Ashley C. Ford says, you are watching people go through withdrawal from the emotional addiction to the myth of certainty. You dropping the mic. So I feel like that fits into our astrology, question, that um, certainty being a myth. So even if it's, you can pin behaviors of yourself, or more importantly of other people, on their astrological signs,
Say it.
then
Yeah.
perhaps it explains the chaos that we're living in. And certainly right now, I that tweet totally spoke to me from that kind of emotional withdrawal. So I just this I was so nervous before this because these things are so alien to me, but this has really warmed my heart. So it's been
Really
a real
warms my
pleasure.
heart too. And I
It's
think
been
that's a perfectly like it's like uh humorously severe to leave it on certainty is a myth, and that's
how
what we've been trying
freeing
to
though.
do.
How
I know.
freeing.
Yeah, you can do anything now.
Yeah. You
There's
can do
no
anything and nothing because nothing matters in the most beautiful way
everything's of
possible.
giant consequence and also meaningless. It's
Hmm.
paradox land. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm glad we could imbue everyone with a little bit of existential dread,
Yeah. And
but
I'll
also it was
footnote
so good
that
to see your
tweet
face.
somehow. Yeah. So nice to see you. All
Yes,
right.
you too.
Well, everybody take care. Be safe.
Be safe and stay whatever designated foot apart.
And see you on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you on the internet. Bye.